All right, we are going to get started in just a minute here. So if you want to double check that your audio is on, we'll get started with our presentation in about a minute. All right, welcome to Penn State Berks LionSide Chats. My name is Dr. Ryan Hassler. I'm one of 3 LionSide Chat moderators. I'm working alongside Don Pfeiffer-Wrights and Sonia De La Cueto. Come on in, welcome to our campus. We're so glad that you could join us today. Before we get started, I just want to share with you that you are more than welcome to ask questions during this session. We will facilitate a question and answer. I will do that with our presenter at the end, but feel free to use the Q&A feature here of the webinar, and we will be able to ask those questions of our presenter at the end. We'll also be recording today's session so that you can revisit these topics or share these experiences with your colleagues or your friends. So now I'm excited to introduce Mr. Michael Stella, who will be speaking about advising here at Penn State Berks. And Mr. Stella is our Senior Undergraduate Studies Advisor. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Michael, as long as everything is good to go. And thanks for joining us to talk about advising during our advising week.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Hassler. Once again, I guess last year I didn't scare you all off. So you invited me back, or you were just so desperate. You had no one else to go to.
Information about advising.
There you go. All right. Let me do the old share screen thing so I can, share stuff. So, and clicky.
All right. Perfect.
What do I need to do? There we go. Got to push the right button. All right. Whew, technology. It's wonderful when it works. It's terrible when it doesn't. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today out in Cyberland. My name is Michael Stella. Again, I'm an academic advisor. I've been at Penn State Berks for a very long time. So it's in double digits. So just so you know, I've been around the block a few times. So I'm here to talk a little bit about advising related things as we're getting into what I call advising season. So but before I do advising related things specifically, I want to talk about GPA, or grade point average. Most students understand what a GPA is. They understand it's a very important number, somewhere between 0.0 and 4.0. That number kind of dictates what happens to you during college. But when I ask students, well, do you know how your GPA is calculated? Most students go, I don't know. Magic? I don't know. It's not magic. It's math, which is like magic, but more real. So I always found it's kind of important to show new students in particular how this works, so you can just see literally how the math works. So to begin with, your grade point average, or GPAs, is based on points. So every letter grade you earn at the university is worth so many points. A's are worth 4, B's are worth 3, C's are 2, D's are 1, F's are worth 0, goose egg. So basically what we do is we take whatever credit value of the course you're taking and we multiply it by the letter grade and we get points. We then add up all those points. And if we've done the math correctly, we then divide by how many credits you're taking, how many points, and then we should get some number between, again, 0.0 and 4.0. For the record, we want to be as close to 4.0 as possible and as far away as possible from 0.0. So to give you an example, I've come up with a typical first semester schedule. And some of you may be taking these very classes: English 15, Math 21, Bi-Sci 3, History 20, Psych 100, and PSU 5 for a total of 16 credits. So I put in some fictitious grades from our fictitious student here. And for the record, yes, there are, different point values for C pluses and B minuses and A minuses. So I wanted to keep the math simple. So I stayed away from pluses and minuses. So I went ahead and put in the grades, put the appropriate value, multiplied, and added up to 43 grade points. So if we divide the 43 points by the 16 total credits, this student's GPA is a 2.68, which is just under a B minus average. B minus average is a 2.77. So overall, student did a pretty good job for their first semester in college. This is actually not bad. Now, what happens if we were to, say, change one of these? So for example, let's say Bi-Sci 3, environmental science, did not go as well as we had hoped. So student gets a D. That's only worth 1 point. So now we change the points to 3 for the class rather than the 6 that was there. So now we're dividing by 34 points by 16, and now we get a GPA of a 2.12. Now, a 2.12 is just above a C average, so we're still in good standing as far as the university is concerned, and I will explain what good standing means in just a few moments. So, but as you can see, one grade, we have now gone from just under a B minus, about 2/3 of a letter grade down to just above a C average. So we've dropped a little bit, fairly significant with just one grade. Well, what if we really didn't like history very much? So again, we got a D in that. Now we have 2 Ds. I've now recalculated to 28 points. So when we divide by the 16 credits, now we have a 1.75. We are now in what we call below good standing, which is a minimum of a 2.0. So this is not exactly where we want to be. In fact, this is exactly where we don't want to be. All right, one more calculation. What if we really didn't like psychology, which I take a little offense to because that was my undergraduate major in college, but I know psychology is not for everybody. I understand. So since this is an F, we have 0 points, and that means we get 0 total grade points, and that means our total points drop rather dramatically to 62. Now, students will ask sometimes, well, wait a minute, if I failed the course, why didn't the 16 credits change? Like, why didn't that go down? Because I failed this. Well, here's the thing. Even though you failed the course, you're still responsible because you completed the course and that you went all the way through the end of the semester, including finals week, you just didn't pass. So unfortunately, these 3 credits from Psych 100 are still here. So that means we do not divide by 13 credits, we divide by 16. So again, if we do the math, 1.37. So now we're even in a deeper hole than what we were just a few moments ago. Okay. What is my point in showing you how the math works, other than showing you how the math works? It's actually very simple. The point is, it doesn't take much to F this up. Yes, pun intended. It's a dad joke. I'm old. This is what I do. So your GPA as a first semester student is a relatively fragile thing in that you don't have one right now. It's blank. So this is your opportunity to get off to a really good start here at the university and build on it. You don't have to get a 4.0 right out of the gate. Although if you can, yeah, that's a good idea. But we encourage you in your very first semester, when you technically have not established a Penn State GPA at all, to establish a very good one and then either continue to build from there or at the very least maintain. So in other words, we want you to stay away from these kind of bad grades, which then puts you in a below than 2.0 GPA, which is again, below good standing. I'm going to talk about this in a few moments. All right, speaking of academic standing, this is the few moments. So good standing at the university means you are doing well academically. And Penn State defines that as having a cumulative GPA of a 2.0, not a semester. Your cumulative GPA is a 2.0. By the way, important fun fact, your first semester in college is the first and only time when your semester GPA for the semester and your cumulative will be the same number. Moving forward, your cumulative will be an accumulation of all your semesters, whereas the semester is just for the semester only. But again, for your first semester, it's the only time it's literally the same number because you're just getting started. So good standing is where we want to be. Your cumulative GPA is a 2.0. As long as you're 2.0 or better, you're in good standing. The university leaves you alone. It just says, go about your business, continue taking courses, do your thing. However, if your GPA drops below a 2.0, which I showed you a couple of examples, just how that worked, you are now in academic warning. Academic warning means your GPA is not where it needs to be. So that means you've got one semester to do one of two things. Either bring up your cumulative GPA back to a 2.0, or if your cum is really low, because let's say Mr. 1.37, and that's kind of a deep hole to dig out of, and it takes you longer than a semester, then if you can't get your cum to a 2.0, can you get your semester GPA to a 2.0? So if you get your cum to a 2.0, congratulations, you're out of academic warning. You're now back in good standing. If, however, your cum is still below a 2.0, but your semester is a 2.0, you're making academic progress. So the university says, okay, your cum's not where we want it. You're still in academic warning, but you showed improvement for the semester of a 2.0. We're going to let you come back for another semester, still in warning, but you can still fight for another day. In other words, you get to continue. Great. Well, what happens if both your cum and your semester are both below a 2.0 at the end of your first semester of academic warning? Well, that's when the university changes you to academic suspension. Now, think of academic suspension as a forced sabbatical leave. And what that means is the university kicks you out for 2 semesters. Now, the summer is considered 1 semester. So if a student who's on academic warning this spring ends up not getting his cum or semester to a 2.0, they will be suspended for summer and fall. That means the earliest they could come back is the following spring semester of 2024. So again, forced sabbatical leave. Now, if the student decides to return from suspension, you're back in academic warning, still under the same rules of you need at least a 2.0 cum. But if you can't do that, you need to bring your semester to at least a 2.0 and continue to fight. All right, so I come back after academic suspension, still in warning. And what happens if, again, I don't get a cum of a 2.0 or a semester of a 2.0? What happens to me then? Well, then you're on academic dismissal. Academic dismissal is a longer forced sabbatical leave. So that means you cannot attend Penn State for 4 calendar years. And by not attending Penn State, I mean, that includes the world campus. So that means you cannot go to any Penn State location, again, on suspension for 2 semesters, or if you're dismissed for 4 calendar years. So that's even a longer time to be away. Since we've been doing this good standing academic warning, academic suspension, academic dismissal policy, we do have some students come back from suspension. The students who've been dismissed, in my experience, they don't usually come back after 4 years, probably for a variety of reasons. Again, the goal is not to end up in any academic warning, suspension, or dismissal, but stay in good standing, which is why I showed you the GPA calculation just a few moments ago. All right, so that's academic standing at Penn State. If you're having some difficulty this semester being your first semester of college, you still have a couple of opportunities to make some adjustments to your fall schedule. So those 2 adjustments come in the form of the late drop deadline. Late drop means you can drop a class, only the one class that's killing you, and keep the other classes that you're doing well in. So if you're struggling, and let's say you're taking 5 classes in a 1-credit seminar, so again, 16 credits. If one of your 3-credit classes is just not clicking, you're able to late drop it, remove it from your schedule, and that means your GPA will be based on the other 4 3-credit classes and the 1-credit seminar. That deadline is Friday, November 11th at 11:59 p.m. You can complete this process through the drop function in LionPath. However, even though you can do this on your own, I encourage all students to talk to an academic advisor before you late drop. Late drop to me is your last result, not the first thing you do. It's the last thing you should consider after you've exhausted everything else, such as speaking with the course instructor, trying to get a tutor in the learning center. If you have financial aid, which most students do, just double checking with financial aid to make sure you late dropping class is not going to adversely affect your future aid for future semesters. So again, this is a last resort and it is coming up, but it is an option. Again, if one class is not going so well and you want to get rid of that one class, but keep the other ones. Please note that when you late drop a class, the class still shows up on your Penn State transcript, but instead of a final grade, there is a W. Since the W, which means withdraw, since the W is a notation and not a grade, it does not impact your Penn State GPA. I repeat, does not impact your Penn State GPA. So again, this puts more pressure on the other 4 classes and the 1-credit seminar in this example. But if you're going to get rid of this one albatross class, now you have more time to focus on the other 4 3-credit classes and your 1-credit seminar to try to get your GPA up to a really good number and establish a strong Penn State GPA in your first semester. So this is one way of adjusting your schedule. The other way is to basically complete a withdrawal, which I'm going to talk about in just a few moments because I forgot I had this thing coming up. So probably should have looked at my presentation before I did it. It happens sometimes. So if you are taking a less than 15 credit semester, which there are some students who are taking 13, 14 credits, and you drop a 3-credit class, would then put you below full-time, which is a minimum of 12 credits. So going below full-time or into part-time status can impact a few things, depending on if this impacts you, because not all things impact you equally. For example, if you have financial aid, this could impact your financial aid. Typically, to be qualified for most financial aid, you have to be a full-time student, which is a minimum of 12 credits. Of course, if you do not have financial aid and you're paying out of pocket, this problem does not concern you. Other effects is on-campus housing. Typically, to be able to live in the residence halls, you must be a full-time student, which is a minimum of 12 credits. However, if you are one of our commuter students, then on-campus housing does not impact you whatsoever if you were to late drop and go into part-time status. And finally, academic progress. The university makes the presumption that most students are taking somewhere between 15 and 17 credits per semester, which is what I typically recommend to make academic progress. So if you end up late dropping one class, that may put you a little behind. So usually late dropping one class is not a big deal. You can usually make it up maybe the next semester or during the summer and get back on track. Now, if you end up late dropping 2 or 3 or 4 classes over the course of the next 2 or 3 semesters, well, if it's just 4 classes, 3 credits each, that's 12 credits. That's a semester. So now you are potentially not on the 4-year plan, you're on the 4.5 or maybe 5-year plan. So again, academic progress, depending on how many times you late drop, could delay graduation. All right, and finally, another way to adjust your fall schedule is to withdraw. Now, withdrawing means you're pulling out of all of your courses. So in other words, it's not just the ones that you're doing poorly in, it's also the ones you're doing well in. So if I go back to the late drop deadline, let's say you come to me on the last day of the semester and say you're definitely failing 1 class, but the other 4 plus the seminar, you're doing just fine, but you don't want that up on your transcript. Well, because we are now past the late drop deadline of Friday, November 11th, we can't just late drop the 1 course that's hurting you and keep the other 4 or 5. At this point, since it's now Friday, December 9th, which is the last day of classes, your options are to take the F and hope that you get 4 A's for the other classes to counter that. Good luck to you. Your other option is to withdraw from the university. So by withdrawing, the F will cease to exist on your transcript. Again, it'll be replaced with the W, which is a notation. So the F is replaced with the W. However, what happens to the other 4 or 5 grades, A's and B's, whatever it is you're earning, they're replaced with W's as well. So again, all or nothing. You either keep everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, or you lose everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. As you can imagine, this is not a very great situation to be caught in. So again, these are conversations with your advisor to talk about how you're doing, using your resources. Faculty are a resource, learning centers are a resource, et cetera, et cetera. So again, to me, withdraw is like late drop deadline. It's the last resort, not the first thing you should consider, but that's why you speak with an advisor, talk to your resources, and we give you some feedback about your individual situation, whether withdrawing is the best idea or not, versus late dropping is the best idea or not. So again, if fall schedule is not going well, you do have the late drop deadline and the withdraw deadline to make any final adjustments to your fall schedule, depending on how things are going. But again, can't stress this enough. Please speak to your advisor about this. If you cannot reach your assigned advisor, I am one of 5 advisors in the Advising Center located in the Franco building across from the Learning Center. You're certainly welcome to speak to any one of us, and we're happy to discuss the pros and cons of late dropping and withdrawing should it come down to that. As I mentioned, we are upon advising season, which is typically talking about classes for the upcoming spring schedule. So for assistance with this, well, what kind of assistance do you have? Well, as I mentioned, you do have an assigned academic advisor to you who should be able to help you with your classes for the upcoming spring semester. So, well, how do I find out who my academic advisor is? Well, in LionPath, you click on the My Advisors tab, which is in the upper right corner. There should be a name and a contact information for the advisor based on your intended major or the current pre-major that you're sitting in right now. Now, if for some reason you do not have an advisor assigned to you, well, you can blame job is assigning students to an appropriate advisor. So if for some reason I missed you, first of all, my sincere apologies and condolences. Second, you find me, I am in 162 Franco, again, across from the Learning Center. Just come to my office and let me know that I apparently did not assign you to an advisor. I'll say, oh dear God, I'm so sorry. What's your ID number? I'll look you up and I'll assign you right away to the appropriate individual based on your intended major. So again, all of you should have an advisor assigned to you by now, but if for some reason you got missed, please come find me and I will take care of that. All right, well, how often should I see my academic advisor? How often should I be in touch with this individual who's supposed to assist me? At least once a semester, although I'm very fond of telling my students, come early, come often. In other words, whenever you have a question, you're not sure where to go, you come here, you come find me, and I'll take care of you. And again, I think I may speak for my 4 peers here in the Advising Center. So we are here as a resource, not only for our students enrolled in the Division of Undergraduate Studies, but any student here who's looking, has questions, has concerns. So at the very least, you should make touch with an advisor at least once a semester. I would say as much as you need to, but at least once, because I like to check in with my students to make sure A, you're doing okay, and B, let's talk about your upcoming semesters with the classes. In this case, I want to make sure your fall semester is going well, and let's talk about spring classes that are appropriate for your intended major. And I've already kind of been really asked to this. What if I can't get in contact with my advisor? Again, the Academic Advising Center is available. We are located in 160 Franco. You can also send an email to bkadvisingcenter@psu.edu, and it will be responded to by one of the advisors, and we'll take care of you as best we can. So again, please reach out when it comes to spring schedule. Even though we provide all the information online so that you could do it yourself, We encourage you to talk to somebody who works here. That way we can make sure that you don't accidentally schedule something you don't need for your intended major and forget to schedule something that you do need for your intended major. Shifting gears a little, faculty expectations. And some of you may have heard this. Some faculty actually kind of cover this, some faculty don't. So I tend to dip my toe in the faculty waters just a little bit to give you all a sense of, since you are coming to college, faculty have slightly different expectations than what you may have experienced from your high school teachers. So faculty, among other things, expect you to attend class on time. This, I think, is fairly obvious. At least it should be. If you're not coming to class on time, faculty may notice, especially if attendance and participation are part of your grade. Like if you're not attending or if you're coming late and that gets docked, those are points that you're giving up. So again, even if they're not taking attendance and noticing, please show up on time. Faculty expect you to complete all the reading assignments before class. This is especially important for classes that have a discussion component, especially if you're going to be talking about whatever the expected readings are. If you haven't read it, you're not able to participate. And again, if participation is part of your grade, you're not going to be able to get those points because you haven't read the assignment. Faculty expect you to respect them as well as other students. College is an opportunity for when you're going to get all kinds of different ideas, and some of them could be very, very different from what you grew up with and what you're used to. So even though these ideas may be like, okay, I'm not sure I agree with that, or I completely don't agree with that, because this is a safe environment, we want you to be respectful of those ideas, especially if you're the one talking. You want those others who have a very different idea from you to respect you when you're talking and expressing your thoughts and ideas. So again, that respect needs to go both ways amongst students and faculty. Faculty expect you to gauge them as well as the course material. College can be very challenging depending on your high school. Some of you may be having a very difficult time. Some of you may be like, oh, this is pretty easy so far, but I could run into some things a little later on. So we expect you to be challenged. So engage the material, and if you're having trouble, engage the faculty member, get the assistance. That's why they're here, to help you with the material. If this was this easy, college would be for everybody. Everyone would be here. Faculty also expect you to perform at a higher level than you did in high school. You may have heard this before. This is not 13th grade. Please do not come here assuming that. You will be disappointed for the most part. Yes, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, faculty are expecting you to behave at a college level, not at a high school 13th grade level. So come in with the attitude of, oh yeah, I'm going to be asked to do more. I'm going to be challenged more. It's coming. Just accept that it's coming. And in some cases, it could be a lot. Some cases, maybe, this isn't so bad after all. Faculty also expect you to ask questions when you don't understand. I tell my advisors all the time, if you've got questions or concerns, you've got to tell me. I cannot read your mind. I am working on the Jedi mind trick. Yeah, see, I just tried it. It wasn't working. So until that happens, ask your questions. Don't be bashful. If something's not clear, ask during the class, or if you're like, I'm a little uncomfortable asking in front of everyone, that's why faculty have office hours, or you can always either contact them through email. The old adage is true. If you have a question in the class about something, chances are somebody else in the class has the same question. So raise your hand. You're not only helping yourself, you're probably helping out another classmate. I remember doing that myself, and I remember other classmates helping me out because for some reason I was bashful about asking a question. So again, if you have a question about the material, you are probably not the only one. In fact, I'm almost sure you're not. So again, you're helping yourself as well as your fellow classmates. Faculty also expect you to complete all assignments by the due date. This happens a lot. Well, I didn't get it done on time. Well, unless there's some extenuating circumstance, and some faculty define extenuating circumstances in a variety of ways, so that's literally up to the individual faculty member. Don't assume you're going to get a break. Get it done by the due date. That's where time management comes in handy. And finally, faculty also expect you to be challenged and to learn. In other words, college is supposed to be challenging. If it was this easy, again, everybody would do it. So that's a little review on what faculty expect. Gauging the system. In case you had not realized, Penn State is a very large, complicated, cumbersome, slow-moving dinosaur of a system. So it's very easy to get lost, overwhelmed, or just ignored, depending on if you're not engaging enough. So since the system is just going to lumber on like that slow-moving dinosaur that it is, it's important for you, the student, to make sure you engage it when you need to. So, well, how do we engage this large, slow-moving, lumbering dinosaur of a system that's been around since 1855? Well, there's a few things you can do. Number one, when you have questions, Ask somebody who works here. Let me stress that one more time. Somebody who works here, as in, we got a small one from the university. So that could be the faculty member teaching the course you're having trouble with. That could be your academic advisor. That could be someone in the learning center. That could be groundskeeper Willie, lunch lady Doris. I don't really care. Somebody who's employed here, and here's why. If you engage the system and you ask a question of somebody who works here, even if it's not the right person, because they work here, there's a really good chance they can say, I'm not the person you should ask, but I'm going to refer you to the person who does, or the office that does know. Like, for example, I get a lot of questions about if I were to late drop this class, or if I was to withdraw, how does this impact my financial aid? I haven't the first damn clue. I know just enough financial aid to be dangerous, which means I don't know a whole lot. But I do know who the two goddesses are in financial aid down in room 14 of the Perkins Student Center. So if these kind of questions come up during our session, I'm going to say, great question. Let me refer you to one of the two goddesses down in financial aid, and one of them can look up your stuff and tell you exactly how, if late dropping or withdrawing is an option, what would that do to your financial aid? Because every person's financial aid situation is different. So again, wrong person, but at least sending it to the right person to get the information. So again, talk to somebody who works here. In other words, first-year students, please resist the temptation to ask other students what the rules are here. They are not paid to know what the rules are. I am paid to know what the rules are. I get students who walk into my office occasionally and they start off with the phrase, somebody told me. I hate those words in that order. You know why? Somebody told me is usually followed by something wrong. You know how I know it's wrong? You're in my office. You're usually upset about what somebody told you. And what I tend to find out is somebody told you is usually an upper class student. So what they told you works for them, but doesn't apply to you. But again, because that student doesn't work here, they don't know what the rules are. So in a lot of cases, if you just engage somebody who works here, we'll say, no, 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 that rule doesn't apply to you, or that policy doesn't apply to you. This is how it works for you. This is what you need to do. So it's a very common mistake that first-year students make. And to be fair, our upper class students tend to be very, very helpful because they see underclass students and they want to help them. So they inadvertently tell you what's true for them, not realizing that because you're in a different major from them or in a different year from them, because you're a first year and they're, say, a junior, sometimes the rules change from year to year and they don't realize that as a first-year student, you're under these rules. As a junior, they're under an older set of rules. So again, they inadvertently tell you the wrong thing. Again, can't stress this enough. If you have questions, you're not sure, somebody who works here, please and thank you. Next help for engaging the system. When you engage the system, be honest when faculty and staff members ask how you're doing this semester. I typically ask this question a lot from my students when they come in, how are you doing this semester? And it really helps to be honest, because if you're not honest and you tell me everything's okay, guess what? I'm going to believe you, because why would you lie to the guy trying to help you? Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. To give you a story, and this is a real story. This was years ago, before we had academic warning and before we had something called Canvas, which actually kind of monitors your grades. I was working with a student who was in undergrad conditional, which is an old way of saying academic warning. And I agreed to help the student every semester, meet with her every week to keep track of how her grades are going. So again, there was no Canvas then. So I was relying on her to tell me how she was doing based on the feedback she was getting from classes. So met with her, she didn't miss 1 week, met with her for the 15, 16 weeks of the semester. At the end, I asked her, okay, as you're going into finals, what kind of grades are you expecting? So at the time she was expecting the following grades: a B minus, a B plus or an A minus, and an A minus. I'm like, that sounds wonderful. That's going to really help your GPA. In fact, it may even get you out of academic warning, or again, non-degree conditional. Good luck on your finals. Have a great summer. See you when you come back in the fall. After finals week, I went back into LionPath, which was not called LionPath back then, but I looked back into the grading system and see, well, how did she do? So I looked at her grades. This is how she actually did. F, C, A minus, and a D. And I thought to myself, what the rhymes with duck? Those aren't the grades we talked about. What happened? So I emailed her instructors and explained who I was and said, I've been working with this student and we was getting this grade in your class, and you ended up with it. Like, what happened? Well, two of the instructors got back to me and said, oh, that student, yeah, she stopped attending since spring break. So in other words, she came for the first half and then after spring break, stopped showing up. Now, keep in mind, this student kept coming to see me and reporting in on how she was doing. So ergo, what I realized is that she was lying in about at least 2 of her classes about the grade she was getting. And I had no idea, because again, why would you lie to the guy trying to help you out? As you can imagine, I was a bit put out by this. And The next semester, I saw her in the hallway and she saw me and did an about face and went the other direction. I never saw her again, which is probably a good thing because I was going to probably give her a very severe tongue lashing of, are you kidding me? So, because I was, again, not happy that I spent time to help her only to be lied to. So, and by the way, that student ended up with a 1.42 GPA for the semester, and then she stuck around for another year and ended up dropping out after a 1.19. So in other words, she continued to do poorly, lingering a little bit, but after that, didn't end up making it. So again, please be honest. Even if it's bad news, we want to know about it so we can help you. When communicating with faculty and staff members for the very first time, I recommend do so in a formal and respectful way. Now, I'll be honest with you. As a staff member, we tend to be a little more loosey-goosey with it. So I tend to tell students, you can call me Mr. Stella, you can call me Michael, whatever you're comfortable doing, just don't call me late for dinner. Whatever you feel comfortable doing is fine. Faculty in general tend to be more formal. So they tend to, err on the side of calling me professor or doctor, something to that effect. So to be on the safe side, when communicating with faculty and staff, err on the side of caution, err on the side of formality, let that individual give you permission to call them by their first name. And that way, you've got permission for some people and for others you don't. That way you're not inadvertently offending somebody by calling them by their first name when they didn't really want you to. With faculty, it can be a little tricky. Some of them have doctorates, some of them don't. If you're not sure if the professor that you're working with has a doctorate or not, professor always works. So if you're not sure, professor so-and-so works. But if you know they have a doctorate, either professor or Dr. so-and-so will probably be just fine. And finally, engaging the system. Resist the temptation to try and beat the system. As I mentioned, Penn State is a very large and convoluted system, and it might seem easy to get lost in it, and nobody will know what you're doing. Well, again, here's the thing. It is large, it is lumbering, slow dinosaur, all that. However, we've been around since 1855. We haven't seen everything. We've seen just about everything. So more than likely, you are not going to get away with what you're trying to get away with. More than likely. That is not a challenge, by the way. I'm just letting you know up front. More than likely, we've seen whatever shenanigans you may think you're going to be pulling off, and you'll more than likely be caught. So to give you, a little bit of story time, some other examples. Student who is in a program designed for at-risk students created a Facebook page. I mean, you all know about the Facebook thing, right? About advantages of skipping class and included the coordinator of the program, which at the time the coordinator was like, yeah, hi, please don't skip class. That's not a good idea. Well, at the end of the semester, the student apparently listened to their own advice and they ended up with a 1.75 after their first semester of college. Now, after that, they ended up canceling their next semester classes and basically just dropped out. So good job blowing off class and doing poorly. It's usually what happens. I had to take Algebra 1 over the summer after failing a review course the previous 2 semesters. So again, they attempted to jump ahead. This was before Alex, so it was easier to do this. That student ended up with a 1.36, was dropped into non-degree conditional. Again, the old version of academic warning, ended up not doing well, canceled their next semester classes and dropped out. So love this story. I had a student who forged spring semester grades and a fall semester schedule in the older version of LionPath. So they faked these grades and courses probably for family members, even though the student had not attended the previous year. So they faked grades, faked a schedule, again, presumably to show mom and dad, even though the university said, yeah, you've not been here for a year. So yeah, you can probably imagine how that worked out. That student ended up with a 0.36. So, so again, we've seen a lot of these kind of shenanigans and they usually don't end very well. So again, please resist the temptation, engage the system, rather trying to beat it. We're here to help you. We're not here to make it harder for you. All right. What's my point in telling you all of this stuff? GPA, beating the system, engaging faculty. Why am I telling you all this stuff? It's very simple, really. College has to be the most important priority, #1 priority in your life right now. That's why you're here. If that's not the reason why you're here, then you should definitely talk with somebody who works here. Again, your advisor, someone who's here, and let's talk about what's going on, because if you are getting distracted, if what's going on outside your college world is impacting your ability to focus on your college studies, And we should address that, because if that distraction continues to be a distraction, it's going to impact your grades. I've seen this on, more than one occasion than I really care to mention. So if you don't do this, then more than likely you are wasting your time coming here. And if I had to guess, somebody else's money, because you're not able to focus on what you need to do and therefore do poorly, academic warning, academic suspension. So again, that's a waste of time, waste of money. College is time consuming, time is precious. I don't want you wasting either one of these things. So again, this is why this has to be the most important thing in your life. Right? And one last thing, and I apologize in advance, this is the worst imitation ever, but I'm going to do it anyway. Hard work leads to knowledge. Knowledge leads to ability. Ability leads to success. Success leads to graduation. May the grades be with you. And that is all I have to say about that. So, I think I may have set the land speed record for all that. I'm sorry, I am from New England, so we talk quickly. This is just how we roll. So hopefully, well, wait a minute, this was recorded. So you can always go back and rewatch it and listen to the same dad jokes. So it's okay. It's really okay.
Awesome. All right. So the Q&A is open. I'm going to get the conversation started here with a few questions on my end. But for those of you in attendance, please, I know there was a lot of information there. My takeaway was self-advocate, ask questions. Right? I was a former high school teacher. I get it that coming out of high school, questions are a bad thing. I don't want to look stupid. That's completely opposite here at the college level. Ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. So
yes.
Put some questions into the chat right now that we can in the Q&A that I can ask Mr. Stella here. But I'm going to start off with a question. I don't want to say there's good advising versus bad advising, but in my own experience as a student, I've gone through different universities and have had different advisors. And there was one time where my advisor, in my opinion, as a student, was a bad advisor, and it made an awful time for myself. So my question is, what happens if a student just isn't jiving with their advisor? They've met with them, it's not going well. What does the process look like? Because to me, when I connected with a new advisor, it made all the world of the difference. So what does that look like?
So what that looks like at Penn State Berks is very simple. So if you are not able to connect with your assigned advisor, or if you do connect, you're not making that done, again, you come find me in 162 Franco, and depending on your major, if there are choices, I will then reassign you from advisor 1 to advisor 2. Now, I say if there's choices because depending on your major, there may only officially be one person that does the advising for that particular major. If that happens, I only speak for me. I probably could speak for my peers here as well, but I'll certainly speak for me. If you are assigned to somebody that you're not connecting with or cannot connect with, and there is no other appropriate person to reassign you to, you come find me. I'm a DOS advisor. And what that means is I know a little bit about all majors here. I can get you off to a good start. So if you are totally stuck and don't know where to go, you come find me. You can probably see one of my peers. Again, I hate to speak for them, but I feel pretty confident that I can do that. We're here to help students, whether you are assigned to DOS or not. Again, our primary advising responsibility is with the Division of Undergraduate Studies students. So DOS student, you're the exploratory, undeclared, not sure what you want to be when you grow up. That does not mean that if you're in a pre-major, have a pretty good idea what you want, you can't come and talk to us about, hey, I'm in my major, I feel good. I just need to know what my next set of courses are. I have questions about maybe late dropping a class because, this one class is not going as well as I had expected it to. So we are a resource. We are your backup. But if I can change you to someone else and hopefully you have a better connection rather than doing this, I'm happy to do it. So definitely talk to me about changing. If it doesn't work, then I'll certainly be happy to meet with you. Probably my peers will be happy to meet with you as well. And we'll just take care of you until you either go to University Park or graduate from Berks, whatever your final journey or destination may be. So that's about as easy as I can make it.
I'm going to put this plug in now. I'll probably put it in at the end here as well. But this Wednesday we have advising across the campus, advising meetings. So
Yes, we do.
that was in the same email that was sent out with this LionSide chat link, but you should be going to your advising meetings to meet with the person who's advising you or advising everybody about the big overall picture. That might not be your advisor, but it's the person that's going to be advising or is giving you some hints about that major specific. So that leads to my next question, Michael. Can you talk just a little bit about, well, there's a question in the chat box about when do we schedule for classes for next semester, which again, I think this Wednesday's advising meeting will talk a lot about, but you can touch upon that. But then also, like, what does this look like throughout the years? So what about declaring my major? What does that mean? And especially, like, what about if I'm not planning on staying at Berks for all 4 years? How important is advising? And do I get a new advisor if I go to a different campus?
Okay, that's a lot to unpack.
Sorry,
that's okay. It's all related.
But maybe a bigger idea of what advising looks like across the 4 years.
Sure. Well, again, as you mentioned, Dr. Hassler, the advising meetings kind of kick off what I like to call advising season. Now, to be oddly enough, advising season actually kicked off on October 6th with students with priority registration. So priority registration is somebody who is an athlete, who's registered with Disability Services, an honors student, and a veteran. So those populations typically are already priority registration. That's a nice perk of being in one of those populations. So typically our advising meetings are before, but for some reason we did this a little backwards. I'm not sure why. I'm not in charge. So for most first year and some second year students, you will not schedule until mid-November. So most first years are going to go around the 11th and the 14th. However, students, if you go into LionPath and click on, look under the enrollment dates, there's 2 dates. There's shopping cart opening and enrollment date. Shopping cart is when the literal shopping cart opens up, which is, I think, for everyone sometime in September. So the cart opened a while ago. But then the enrollment date, that's the one that says, okay, for you, based on how many credits you're going to have completed by the end of this semester, here's your date to go. So that's the date you want to pay attention to. So, okay, if I schedule on, I'm making this up, on Friday, November 11th at midnight, I should meet with my advisor no later than Thursday the 10th. So again, for most first year, since you don't schedule for about another 3 weeks, you should, knocking on wood, have plenty of time to get in and talk to either your assigned advisor or one of us DOS advisors if you're not connecting with your assigned advisor. As far as who your advisor is moving forward, if your destination is University Park, yes, when you get up to University Park in your major, you will be assigned to a University Park advisor up there. Although, a funny story, once in a while I get a U Park student who wants to meet with me through Zoom to talk about classes up there. So, and that's because I see anybody, because I don't say no, because if I can help you, then I'm going to help you, because why would I withhold information from you? Now, if I don't know, that's a different story, and I will tell you that. So that's if you're going to U Park, yes, you'll be assigned to an appropriate advisor up there. If you're staying here, then you should be assigned to an appropriate faculty advisor here in your major here at Berks. But again, sometimes I'll speak for me. I know I see juniors and seniors in majors because they make a connection with me for the first 2 years. And again, if I can help you, I will help you. But then again, I do have limits and I know what my limits are. So if you ask me some questions that I don't know the answer to, then I will say, yeah, you need to go talk to your assigned advisor or the program chair, somebody who's in the department who knows a lot more than I do. So for most students, your advisor will probably change if you're going to U Park. In some cases, if you stay here, you may have the same advisor throughout your whole 4 years. If you started off in the right pre-major and stay with it, then you'll probably have the same person for it. That doesn't happen a lot, but it has been known to happen. So I think, is that everything? That was a multifaceted question.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
It gives us a bigger idea. I guess the other question that was asked, or that I could ask, is talking about a little bit about what advising looks like, and especially because we probably have a lot of first-year students here in attendance. Can you talk about the idea that, oh, I want to be a mechanical engineer, so that means I'm in the college of engineering right now. Can you talk a little bit about like declaring major and what just some of that stuff looks like?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good point. Students, when you first come into Penn State, there, with the exception of like nursing and a couple of other handful of majors, you come in what we call pre-major. Pre-major is a holding text. So that's saying my intention is to declare a major within this college. So like we'll use mechanical engineering. So if you're going to mechanical engineering at University Park, you should be in the College of Engineering. So your pre-major is ENGR. That stands for engineering. If you're, however, doing mechanical here at Berks, you have a slightly different pre-major, BKENG, which means Berks Engineering. So think of the pre-major as a holding tank. It doesn't commit you to anything specifically. It's just telling the university that this is what you're thinking. What tells us exactly what you're doing is when you actually declare your major. So to declare your major, that's when you have to make sure you've completed all entrance to major requirements. All majors have entrance to major requirements. Some, in fact, the vast majority of majors only require a minimum of 29.1 credits, which is your first year of college, and a minimum 2.0. So for most students, after your first year of college, you can declare and go from pre-major into major for your sophomore, junior, and senior years. However, there are some majors, like mechanical engineering, for example, that are a little bit more, how do I say this, pesty to get into. There's more hoops to jump through. Certain courses need to be complete with the C or better. GPA may be higher, like at University Park, mechanical engineering has a higher GPA to get into than remaining here at Berks for the same degree. Why? Location, location, location. UPark is a bit more popular than Berks. I don't understand why. I think we have a lovely slice of heaven here, but we don't have a football stadium. So that might have something to do with it. That's just a theory. So for students, again, you are all probably in a pre-major, which means you've got certain things to do in order to go from pre-major to major. That's one of the things you can talk to your advisor about. How are you making academic progress towards completing whatever entrance to major requirements you may have for your specific major? Yours could be very simple, credits and GPA. Yours could be credits, GPA, and XYZ courses. What are those courses? What grades do you need? Blah, blah, blah. And that's what your advisor should be able to explain to you and keep you on track of. I know I do when I work with students who are heading towards those more complicated majors. Let's say, okay, where are you for your interest in major? Where are you with that? How are you making progress? And let's make sure you make progress within the first 2 years, because most students declare their major sometime during their sophomore year, most during their fourth semester. So that's be a little over a year from now. That's how it should work.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody asked about your contact. And so again, Michael is in the advising center right across from the learning center in Franco. But I'm going to capitalize on that question too. Again, not calling anybody out, but somebody was asking about, how to switch a major and get in contact with you, Michael. But the question was, or the statement was, I'm in class and in an actual class with my advisor, and I'm failing that class. And so I'm a little bit worried and scared to talk to my professor, who's also my advisor. So I am a faculty member. If you don't know me, again, I'm Dr. Hassel. I teach math here. My first response is, try going to talk to that faculty member, because you won't, I guess it might be scary where, some of us maybe are a little bit scarier than others, but I guarantee you that the reason you're probably failing that class is because you're not talking to that faculty member and figuring out what you could do better. So, if you open up those conversations with us, then, the advising conversations are easy. So I just can't reiterate, ask questions, talk to us. Yes, you might get some pushback, if you show up and you want to know why you're struggling in my class and I haven't seen you in 4 or 5 days because you haven't been in class, I'm going to be honest with you. I ain't going to sugarcoat it, but come talk to us. And we all make mistakes. We've done things differently. Trust me, not every faculty member here had a 4.0 through their school. Probably very few of us did. Myself was not one of them. All right. So we've had problems. We've faced the same issues as you. But we can't help you unless you're asking the questions, which is what Michael has said here.
If you're struggling in a class, the first thing I ask students is, have you spoken to Professor so-and-so about how you're doing? Shockingly, the answer, the vast majority of the time, is no.
Yeah.
To which I respond, you should, or why the hell not, or something to the effect of, you need to. The faculty member is the best source of support for that class. The faculty member knows what his or her expectations are for you in that class and can better assess where are you, where you need to be, and how big or small this gap is, and what you need to do, if possible, to make that gap this, so that you're all set before the late drop deadline, which again is coming up on Friday, November 11th. So remember, late drop is a last resort. It's not the first thing you should do. It's the last thing you should consider. So a lot of times, most faculty here, in my experience, are willing to work with students. They understand that, stuff happens and, are willing to work with you. Now, not all faculty will do it, but most faculty in the 20 plus years I've been here have been pretty, I don't want to say lenient, but pretty understanding. Dr. Hassel, you're your faculty here. So I would say your peers seem to be, as a group, pretty good.
I mean, we're all different, but
sure, right.
But you got to open up those conversations, right?
Yeah. don't be bashful about it. They are here to help you. They are here to teach you. But if you don't tell them that you're having trouble, it's like when the professor says, any questions, and there's crickets, what's the assumption? You must understand this. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just had this conversation in my first year seminar this morning.
All right.
If your faculty members don't know your name, ask the question, why? Why don't they know you? And if the answer is, well, because my faculty member doesn't care to know me, then you're doing something wrong. Come see us. We care. You know, I might have 150 students and I might not get to know, but if you come see me during my office hours or outside of class or before class, I mean, those are the times where we get to know you, right? So, you know, I put it back typically on the students. If a faculty member doesn't know who you are, it's because you're not doing something right. You're not making those connections. And so, you know, what can you do to change your trajectory? And we're here to help you. That's the big difference. And again, I was a high school teacher before I came here. The models are different. Right. This is more self-advocacy, being on your own. And the supports are here. You just have to reach out to, you know, people like Michael to help.
Yeah. Unlike high school, where high school will come to you and chase you down and remind you of things, in college, we will remind you very little of things. And we expect you to just keep up, pay attention. You have a syllabus. You've got the academic calendar, the information. I mean, even advising stuff, that information is out there for you to go grab. So you just have to go out and get it. Although with advising stuff, I recommend you can go out there, but then talk to a human being to make sure you are interpreting the information correctly. You're not accidentally scheduling something that you don't need for your major and missing an entrance to major requirement that you really need to be taking now or next semester. So again, that self-advocacy, as Dr. Hassler was saying, that's critical, because very rarely, it's not that we won't reach out. We're going to expect you to use your words and tell us that you're having trouble, and then we're happy to help you. So that's probably the biggest paradigm shift, is shifting from, oh, I just can sit back on autopilot and because the high school will come after me. You come to college, yeah, we're not coming after you. We'll let you know.
And maybe one comment on that, and maybe you can talk just briefly about this. One of those times where we do come after you, I think just happened since we had our starfish reports. So can you maybe just briefly talk about that, Michael?
Sure. Early progress reports and mid-progress reports. So EPRs and MPRs. I know EPRs came out a little while ago. I don't know if MPRs
just
came out.
I think it just came out this week, or yeah, they were due last week.
All right, so that was week 8. We're now in week 9, so we're about which is about right. We're halfway through the semester. So students, if you got an EPR or an MPR in Starfish, first of all, that is not spam. That is not garbage. That is your faculty member in one of your classes reaching out to you saying, hey, I've noticed the following problem, you know, whether it's attendance or grades, and they may have different notes there that says, come talk to me, or you need to talk to me and your advisor. Some of them are like, you're doing really poorly, you should just drop. You know what I mean? So depending on how, I would still talk to the professor anyway. But if you're getting these messages in your Penn State email, you know, that thing you should be checking at least once a day, because that's how the university reaches out to you. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you have early progress reports, you should read them and go, oh, I need to do something different. And what is that something different? At the very least, talk to the professor who teaches that course, who send the early progress reports, and get more detail. Again, that's an invitation. That's one of the few ways where the college invites you to say, you're struggling in XYZ course. I'd like you to come talk to me as the instructor, because I want to talk to you about this. I want to help you. Now, if you don't read it, or if you blow it off, okay, you're an adult. You don't have to do this, but there's probably gonna be consequences. And that means a poor grade. And if too many poor grades happens in your first semester, that thing called academic warning that I told you a little about at the beginning, that's a real thing, kids. And we take that really seriously here. The university takes it very seriously. If you don't have that GPA of a 2.0 cum, or at least a 2.0 semester, suspension's a real thing. I mean, we're not playing. We used to play, we don't play anymore. You know, we used to. Now it's you know, we're trying to catch you early so you don't drag and go further into debt and waste more time if this isn't going to work out for you. So it's a way of trying to catch you from digging the hole, which is good, but that means you also have very little room to screw up, which is why I talk about the importance of establishing a good GPA in your first semester and build from there, rather than doing poorly and then having to dig out. You now put more pressure on yourself in the second semester. So if you've got any EPRs from week 3 or any MPRs from just last week, yeah, respond to those, reach out, don't ignore them. That's your instructors reaching out to you saying, I want you to come talk to me. There's problems with this class. I want to help you. There's time to help you. There's time to turn this around. The longer you wait, you're going to make this harder, if not impossible.
Yep.
So yes,
Perfect.
thank you, Dr. Asser, for reminding us of that.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, we're about out of time. There were a couple questions that came in about the stamps for the passport. So we do have a record of attendance, and all of your first year seminar instructors do get a record of that for this webinar. So they will have a record of that for your stamp for your passport. So there was a couple questions about that. So other than that, I think we're about out of time. I know classes are starting and some of you might have to get to class. So thank you, Michael, for chatting with us today, advising us on advising. That's great. Special thanks to everybody for joining the LionSide Chat. As you do click out, there will be access to a survey. If you can take a couple minutes to fill that out, that would be great, so we get some more understanding about your needs and wants with LionSide Chat. So we're encouraging you to reach out to us via email if you have any questions, and our website is always updated with more future chats. So be sure to come back soon. Visit here with more faculty, staff, students from Penn State Berks. Stay safe. Signing off until next time. This has been the Penn State Berks LionSide Chats. Thanks again, Michael.
You're welcome. Good luck to every student.
Yep. Thanks, guys.